for your support for that. Thank you so much for your support for the Free the Mass movement. This is a real team effort. I've formed a strategy committee and consisting of some chancery personnel and the archdiocesan offices and some people from outside the archdiocesan offices, priests and lay faithful. Maggie's been a critical part of this. She's a great strategist and kind of masterminding it. But to give you a little kind of the historical background of where we've come to this point, so the shelter-in-place order went into effect in the middle of March. Then at the beginning of June, I'll give kind of the brief touch on the high points. At the beginning of June, the city said by the middle of June, we would be able to open up for worship. And of course, it's always on a Monday, that's the effective date, right? And I've been insisting all along that it was the decision of the bishops to suspend public masses in order to cooperate with our public officials in trying to get the virus under control. The state doesn't have authority to tell the church whether or not it can worship, whether or not worship is essential or what kinds of worship is essential. The state has the authority to protect public health, and so to tell us what we need to do to protect our people when they worship, but the regulations can't be so restrictive as to effectively ban public worship. We submitted our safety protocols to the city in May at their request that faith communities do that. These have been followed all around the country. There was a committee formed out of the Aquinas Institute, a Thomistic Institute rather, in Washington, D.C., committee of people with different expertise, theologians, liturgy experts, health science experts, to put together a plan for celebrating the Mass with due dignity and reverence while also protecting people's health. So these have been adapted all over the United States, and I made my own few little tweaks and issued it for the Archdiocese, and it's been proven to be effective. The health officer himself has spoken approvingly to me of it. So they said at the beginning of June that by the middle of June, we can return to worship, but according to the health order to be issued by the city. So I did, to be honest, I anticipated by one day, since, as I said, it's not the state's authority. I allowed the priest to celebrate Mass the day before because that Sunday was Corpus Christi Sunday. And I said, we may need to make some changes in our safety protocols depending on what comes out of the city's health order. But what came out was worship services were allowed only outdoors and only with a maximum of 12 people. And although they allow indoors for the purpose of live streaming a religious service, and they allow the people necessary there to conduct the service and to live stream it up to 12. So if you're live streaming, you can have 12 people inside if they all have some role in the service. If you're not live streaming, then you have to have outside with 12 people. So this obviously was very frustrating, and I had a conversation with the health officer, and he said he had this plan to put into place where we would initially 12 people inside, but as soon as possible move to the limit allowed by the state of California, which is 100. Now this is another problem as well. It's not just San Francisco. San Francisco's the worst, but others are almost as bad. The state of California issues guidelines, and then the counties can implement those according to their own health orders. They can be stricter, but not more open. The guideline for California is for religious services, 25% capacity of the house of worship up to a maximum 100 people. Well, this also is a big problem. They don't have a numerical limit on any other kind of activity, only for churches, and it's not taking into consideration the size of the building. St. Mary's Cathedral, 100 would be under 4% capacity. So that's already a problem. And now it's even much worse in San Francisco. So they issued a health order, which was effectively continuing the ban on public worship. Then there was this plan that the health officer told me, but that at the beginning of 1 week, and then by the end of the week, they said there was an increase in the infection rate, so they suspended this. So this has happened now, it happened twice. So first, they said we'd open up for worship, and the health order was only 12 and only outside. Then we were going to have this plan to move quickly to 25% or 100 indoors, no limit outdoors. and then that was stopped. Then, and then this just went on and on and on. I've spoken to the health officer twice. The second time was a Zoom meeting with him and the mayor. And I pulled all the stops. I explained about mental health, spiritual health, the problems this is causing for people and that they say they're well aware of, a number of other arguments. And I said, stores issued their safety plan, you approved them, and now they're back in operation. We submitted ours in May, and we're still waiting to hear back, and we still are. So so I decided that as a way to manifest, a public manifestation of our faith, that we are a church. Church comes from the Greek word ekklesia, which means literally an assembly. The very definition of who we are is a people gathered in and under our Lord. So at 12 people, it's hard to think of us that's really a gathering. So we started having multiple masses on the Cathedral Plaza. It's a huge plaza. It could accommodate many hundreds of people. So we were doing 12 masses with 12 people at each mass. Then the city said they were going to open this up for religious services, and they would allow for 50 outdoors. By the way, the health order, until Maggie mentioned about one person at a time inside a church, it never was specific about that. The health order was just about churches being closed for services. So they didn't take into consideration this distinction about a worship service and people going in there individually to pray. And they knew that a lot of our churches were open and people were going in there to pray, and that we had some friction over that at times. So the new health order was issued. So here they do it again. We'll open it up for 50 gatherings for outdoors, but it prohibits multiple gatherings in the same location. And it specifies only one person at a time inside of church to pray. Okay. Now, at the same time, the city opened up these one-on-one services that involve extended contact, one-on-one. So hair salons and nail salons, massage parlors, tattoo parlors, these kinds of things. So this is indoors, extended one-on-one contact, but only one person at a time inside of church to pray. Plus, the order still is in place that allows 12 people inside to live stream a service. If they're conducting a service, they have to be closer together than people who could be spread apart inside of a church to pray. So this is the way the city has been treating us all along. So I decided we need to be more aggressive. Then we formed this Free the Mass movement. Perhaps you've seen the signs, we are essential, free the Mass. Last Sunday, we had organized 3 processions from 3 different parishes, coming from different directions, converging on City Hall, from the Mission District, beginning at St. Anthony's. So this was like the Hispanic contingent, which was a Eucharistic procession, from St. Patrick's downtown, which was mainly the Filipino contingent, and then from Star of the Sea in the Richmond, which was many of the descendants of the European immigrants. So they all converged at City Hall Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, and we processed with the Blessed Sacrament to the Cathedral Plaza, where we had about 20 masses of 50 each. And I was able to preach to everyone gathered on the plaza. After the gospel reading was finished at all the masses, then we resumed the masses. So we're continuing to push. We're planning the Rosary Rally for October 3rd in the evening. It will be the Vigil Mass for us in San Francisco. It's the Solemnity of St. Francis. So we'll have a procession, again, for the Mission District and Mass, and a procession praying the Rosary around the Cathedral Plaza. Again, this is to publicly manifest that faith is essential. We as people of faith are essential. We're being unjustly deprived of our natural right to worship that is protected by the First Amendment. You may have heard that the Attorney General's office, the Department of Justice for the United States, issued a letter to Mayor Breed telling her to stop these, to use their word, draconian restrictions on religious worship, treating us unfairly and unequally, and violating the First Amendment of the Constitution, The letter says at one point that, I thought this was very insightful and incisive, that the unyielding protection that the First Amendment gives to religious believers is what distinguishes the United States from places that are ruled by tyranny and despotism. Robust religious liberty is what distinguishes the United States from many other places that are ruled like that. At the most fundamental, religious liberty means a lot of things. It's not simply the right to worship, but worship is like the most fundamental core part of the wider complex of what is religious liberty. We bishops have been concerned about infringements on our religious liberty in other ways to provide our services in keeping with our moral principles that are informed by our faith, and the pressure from governing authorities to force us to give those up, to comply to standards that are actually harmful and immoral. So that's already an infringement on religious liberty. But now we're seeing it's beginning to enter inside the walls of the church, where they're depriving us of our right of worship, treating us in a very unfair and unequal way. So I'm very grateful to the Attorney General and his office for coming to our aid. And we will continue, though, manifesting our insistence that our right to worship be respected. Now, the city attorney announced that as of Wednesday, they will allow indoor worship up to 50. But again, why 50? Right now, even if you go by the draconian guideline of California, we can go up to 100. So why don't they allow us 100? Why do they only allow 50? It's very clear they just can't bring themselves to allow us to fully exercise our rights. So they continue sort of playing these games with us. So we'll continue to advocate for this, and with your support, and I'm very grateful to you for that.